So with patch 10.4 coming up, we got another season of Ranked. And what's super cool about this season is they're actually breaking up bronze, silver, and gold into more tiers. And I love this because lower tier Ranked has always been quite fun for a short period of time. What I mean by that is oftentimes it can get really sweaty and tryhardy at the highest level of Ranked. Well, as high as rank gets, but lower tier Ranked often can devolve into, well, tier 6 was a great example of HE spamming Fusos at each other, right? So with it being a shorter season, with it only being bronze that is in this tier 6 and 7 range, I think this will be an opportunity to have some fun in your tier 7 ships, which are often getting up tiered into tier 9 games, and that's not the most fun experience, let's be honest. So looking at these lists today, I'm going to give you my top ships for each class, destroyer, cruiser, battleship, and what I think are going to be excellent choices for this upcoming rank season, specifically for bronze. We'll look at silver and gold later, but bronze being tier 6 and 7 has some very interesting choices. And we're going to start with destroyers because ranked is all about winning, right? You got to get stars, you got to win. And that comes down to cap control. Controlling caps is the name of the game here. So importantly, we're going to start with destroyers. And I do believe that Leningrad is the strongest destroyer at tier 7. And that's mainly down to the guns, but it is actually able to get a pretty decent concealment rating once you put a commander on it, right? I'm in the 6.5 kilometer range with this ship. And you have concealment expert, and that means you have stealth torps, you have incredibly good guns with decent range, good health, and this thing is really difficult for any other destroyer at the same tier to really do anything to. So I think a Leningrad is going to be incredibly powerful, but not as much at cap control. It's going to be at killing other destroyers. The cap control destroyer, in my mind, has to be Haida. This ship gets ridiculous concealment. 6.3 here with the without a captain on it. And if we just slap a quick concealment captain on here, you can see 5.7 at tier 6. That is crazy. For a destroyer at tier 7, traditionally the problem is you don't have access to this 5th upgrade slot, and that usually contains concealment. So oftentimes the downside of a tier 7 destroyer compared to a tier 8 destroyer is it has worse concealment. Not so with Haida. Haida is going to be the ultimate cap contester, cap controller, because it has decent guns, it's got this crawling smoke, it's got a hydro, so you're going to be an absolute beast at controlling caps. And you're going to have to be careful of radar cruisers because there are some, and we'll get into that. But I think Haida will be your strongest pick for cap control, and I think the Leningrad is going to be your strongest pick just kind of overall as a destroyer. For the third spot, I have the Gajamada and the Jarvis. They're both pretty similar ships. I slightly prefer the Gajamada just because the slightly longer range torpedoes, a little more useful against battleships. And yeah, having these guns, I mean, they're the same guns as what's on Haida as well. They're very good at close range because the arcs get a little bad at longer ranges, but you can manage that at close range. They hit pretty hard. And again, decent concealment on this ship. Once I have a camo, I think it's down to 6.1 on this ship. Yes. Which is, again, very good for contesting caps and everything. And of course, the special thing about the Pan-Asian destroyers is you get these smoke screens, right? These are some of the best smoke screens in the game, the most useful. They're active for enough time that you can get some good damage, but they're not active for so long that it feels like you waste half of your smoke screen because the enemies have moved off or something like that, or you're getting pushed out of your smoke. These are excellent, excellent, excellent smoke screens, and this Gajamada is a very good ship. And that's why I've got it at 3. Jarvis is also a great example. They're very similar ships. Now, in my 4th slot, I got some torpedo ships because they are powerful if there's lots of battleships. They're not so good against destroyers and those engagements, but running a Shiratsuyu with torpedo reload, definitely a great way to counter battleships, assuming there are battleships in queue. If the If you're not seeing a lot of battleships, I wouldn't recommend taking these ships out. But of course, the other one you can pull on a as a torpedo boat is actually a tier 6. The T-61 is so good that it actually, in my mind, fits the power level of tier 7s. At least in torpedo power. 6.1 kilometer detection, 8 kilometer torps that reload every minute. This thing is an absolute beast of a torpedo threat, and of course you get the hydro smoke combo that the German DDs get. The one problem, of course, is the guns aren't amazing. But if you're going for a torpedo boat, I would say T-61 or the Shiratsuyu are probably going to be your best torp boats. Not that the others aren't bad at it, right? Like Leningrad has good torps, Gajamada has good torps, but these are more focused on torpedoes and killing battleships. And fifth for destroyers, it's actually Sims and Mahan, or Mahan, however you pronounce it. Mainly because of the utility that smokes can give. If you can play with your teammates, convince your teammates to maybe pop some cruisers into a big giant smoke screen or near a cap, that's going to be a great way to win cap control. Even though if these DDs have worse concealment than their counterparts, the smoke is just such a great utility to help your team. So if you're good at smoking up your teammates and you're willing to rely on them, these can be some pretty solid destroyers. Mahan obviously has some pretty incredible guns as well. Sim's a little less because it doesn't have the 5th turret here. But both can be very, very strong at helping your team win. But I still think if you're trying to solo carry, there's probably a few better options. So that's the destroyers. Leningrad, Haida, Gajamada / Jarvis, Shiratsuyu in 4th with T-61, and then Mahan and Sims rounding it out to top 5. Those, I think, are going to be your best bet with destroyers in this upcoming rank season. Tier 7 has a lot of diversity, and I like it a lot. On to cruisers now. I think the best cruisers basically taken by Belfast. Unfortunately, if you're new to the game, you probably don't have this ship because it hasn't been for sale for a very long time. And if you don't know what this ship brings, well, look at the concealment, 8.9 kilometers, and the radar of 8.5 kilometers. So almost as soon as you're spotted, you can pop radar and spot whatever's spotting you, as well as a smoke screen on this ship and a hydro. So taking this ship out is going to be very difficult. Of course, the downside of a Belfast is a rushing battleship, and that's because you don't have torpedoes. But most Belfast players are good enough to play around that and pretty much decimate all of your destroyers. That's what this ship is designed to do, and because of that, it is my favorite pick for Tier 7 cruiser. It is just that good. And now in this next choice, you're going to see how much I value radar and killing destroyers. I think number 2 best is Atlanta, actually. If you can face Tier 7s and 6s, Atlanta is a beast, especially if you know how to use islands. And the radar and destroyer killing capacity is just unbelievable with this ship. If you catch a DD within this radar, they're more than likely they're going to die, just because of the incredible gun power that the Atlanta has. Of course, you have to watch out with how squishy this ship is. And obviously you don't get the smoke like the Belfast does. So the utility that this ship brings isn't quite as good as a Belfast, but it's still quite good at contesting caps, killing destroyers, that kind of thing. As well as burning down battleships, right? These cruisers are both very good. Now, on to more normal tech tree ships that you can get. It's actually Fiji. I think Fiji is an incredible cruiser at Tier 7. It's got a really good heel, it's got good detection, it's got smoke screens, and of course it has torpedoes that the Belfast doesn't have. So you're much more dangerous to a battleship at closer ranges. You can YOLO things a little bit easier, as well as the armor piercing on these guns is just incredible. So it's going to melt through destroyers when your destroyers are spawning things. A smoked up Fiji next to a cap is a very dangerous ship to deal with indeed, assuming you have a destroyer helping you out by spotting things for you. But that's usually going to happen. DDs often get in fights, and having a Fiji with you to help you trade things out is really, really going to help things out. And 4th, I think actually Helena is actually an incredible pick. These guns hurt. You've got 1,552 millimeter guns with a decent reload, and While this ship doesn't bring radar, it doesn't bring a smoke, it brings just incredible gunpowder. And one salvo from a Helena hitting a destroyer is often enough to win that gunfight for your team. So yeah, you're going to have to play a little bit more passive than a Fiji or a Belfast. And you don't have the radar ability of an Helena. But Helena is very good at killing destroyers, very good at dealing with enemy cruisers as well with this HE. And of course, burning down battleships is very easy for a ship like this. You just have to be careful because you don't get the heal. And so you do have to manage your health pool a little bit more with this ship. But it's still a great option, I think. And last, I'm putting some heavy cruisers. I value reload, and I value the ability to hit destroyers more often. Heavy cruisers, there's a lot of great picks. I think Gajamada is actually a really interesting one. Of course, we all know how good SAP is against destroyers. And Gajamada is the only Italian cruiser to get a hydro and this smokescreen. So having the ability to smoke up, charge a destroyer with hydro active, you can see it's a 6-kilometer hydro detect. That's actually very powerful. So while it doesn't have the main guns of some other heavy cruisers, like the reload is not as amazing, still 15 seconds, you're a very dangerous ship still. And I think with the right plays, Gajamada could be a good choice. That said, you can also put an Algerian here, or a Myoko, or a lot of these other heavy cruisers, New Orleans, that kind of thing. Indianapolis even, with its radar. They're decent. The problem is the slower gun reload, and you're less able to impact these destroyer fights, in my mind, just because you're worse concealment and worse reload. But if you do hit your shots, they can definitely be decent choices. And last, yes, the battleships. Here they are. I think out of all of these, I think we all know which one's the best. Yep, that's the boring pick of the Synop. Yeah, I know. 65,000 HP, stupid levels of armor for a tier 7 battleship. You've got 406mm guns with pretty decent dispersion, especially at close range. If you're wondering how to deal with this ship at close range, you have to hit the bow, assuming you can overmatch this. And the thing about Synop, if you're playing it, you actually have to push with this ship. I actually kind of like this design because you're forced to push in due to this deck armor being so weak. If you're at ranges where enemy battleships get plunging fire onto this deck armor, you're just as weak as any of the other tier 7 battleships that have no armor. Right? It doesn't matter if you're shooting a Duke of York, for example, or a Synop at some longer ranges, because you're just going to be overmatching the deck. So that's how you deal with a Synop. You shoot at it from range with your battleships and your cruisers, that kind of thing. Try and kill it before it gets close. Because if you let it get close and angle like this and you start trying to shoot this area, it's just not going to go well. But this ship, if you're looking for the best battleship at tier 7, especially for ranked, because you are going to be pushing a lot, I think Synop is going to be your best choice. Now, the second choice, in my mind, is a very new ship, and that's the Hyuga. And that's because this ship is very, very accurate. It's got a decent reload on 12 guns. Sure, it doesn't have overmatch, but it's got this reload booster. And with this reload booster, you can get 2 salvos out very quickly, nearly heavy cruiser levels of 2 salvos from a battleship. So if you're looking to impact an early engagement, catch a cruiser broadside, help to hit a destroyer, that kind of thing, the Hyuga is amazing for that kind of thing. It is one of the best battleships for impacting those fights because of that reload booster. It's so good. The other nice thing about the Hyuga is it actually has a bit of armor here. You're not going to die super quick to HE or battleship overmatch too much. You can see you got 32, 44, 35, 149, right? Like you're able to angle this ship and not take too much damage. Unlike the majority of tier 7 battleships. That's really the thing that holds a lot of tier 7 battleships back, is just getting overmatched by literally everyone. So that's why a lot of these picks for battleship are ones that won't get overmatched as much. That's the goal. And speaking of not getting overmatched much, third on the list is the Nisnow and Scharnhorst. Yes, the guns on both of these ships are a little bit lackluster. They're not amazing. But the combination of pretty decent armor, as well as the big thing being the torpedoes. Being able to YOLO into battleships at the end of the game and almost guaranteed win close quarters engagements is a very powerful thing. The secondaries can do some damage. As we all know, they're not very accurate, so they're not going to do that much work for you, but they can do some work in the right scenario. But the main thing, of course, is the ability to push in and help your team that way with both of these ships. As far as recommending one over the other, if you're seeing a lot of cruisers, play a Scharnhorst. If you're seeing a lot of battleships, play a Nisnow. That is what I would say, because bigger guns like this, getting the overmatch ability on a lot of the Tier 7 battleships is much better, but the only 6 guns with German dispersion isn't going to do much versus cruisers, whereas having 9 guns is a little better versus cruisers. But both very good ships still. In the 4 slot, I actually have the Duke of York and the King George. I think these two ships are amazing, and a lot of people don't play them all that often, or maybe they're sleeping on them a little bit. And I think you're undervaluing what these ships bring. 10 guns, right? Keep that in mind. Sure, it's lower caliber. Duke of York gets the benefit of improved pen angles, as well as short fuse AP, I believe, on these British battleships, which is they kill cruisers incredibly quickly. Short fuse AP means the shells detonate in half the time, I believe, compared to a traditional AP shell, meaning you're getting far less overpens. And the improved pen angles on Duke of York AP is nasty. Of course, we all know the HE is incredible on these ships, so if you run into battleships that you can't pen with your AP, you just swap to the high explosive and you blow them away, right? Lighting fires every salvo, and they die relatively quickly. And of course, Duke of York gets the extra bonus of having a hydro. 4-kilometer hydro, helping you against destroyers, and of course this HE is monstrous against destroyers. The reason King George is still in the argument, despite not having the improved pen angles, or actually I believe it doesn't have the improved pen angles. Let me know if I'm wrong there. I might be wrong, and King George also gets the improved pen angles, the Duke of York. But I believe it's just the Duke of York. The thing that the King George gets is a faster reload, right? These have like a 29.5 second reload. King George is in the 25 second range. So you get more DPM with the King George, but Duke of York gets the bit more utility. Both very, very strong battleships. And last in 5th is the Florida. Yes, the Florida. The ship I love so much is only 5th best in my mind. And that's because it's armor. In ranked battles, you can't have a ship that's going to get overmatched pushing in. And ranked is all about pushing in and controlling caps. So running a ship with this kind of armor, with a citadel that's this exposed, is not going to go too well in ranked, because sniping isn't really a viable option if you want to help your team win. So the only reason I would say run a Florida over these other battleships is if you're getting absolutely focused by carriers. If there's a bunch of carriers in queue, jump in a Florida, get yourself an AA build captain, pop your defensive fire, and laugh as all the planes evaporate. That is the reason to run a Florida. Of course, at longer ranges, it gets 37mm deck armor, so it's a little harder at range to deal damage to this ship. It's basically the opposite of Synop, where Synop is vulnerable at range. Florida's relatively tanky at range. But, of course, close range combat is the name of the ranked season. So those are my picks, guys. Hope you enjoyed. We got the Leningrad top in the charts for Destroyer. Haida is a very close second. Cruiser, Belfast, Atlanta, pretty standard, honestly. Getting in there with Fiji as well. And then in the battleship slot, obviously Synop, right? Hyuga making a close second, as well as the Nisnow and Scharnhorst. It should be a good, fun season in my mind. I hope it will be. And I'm actually debating whether I just leave my account in Bronze League, because it might just be that fun to be able to play your Tier 7 ships without having to deal with Tier 9s. That might be a reason to leave your account in Bronze League, not do the qualification for Silver, and just enjoy your Tier 7 ships again. We'll see. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that yet, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. gave you something to think about. Maybe let me know what you plan on playing in the comments below. These are my choices for ranked, but you might have something else. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.